This is Food Talk for Health, because you really are what you eat. Here is your host, Tonia King.
My guest today is Dr. William Li, and today we're talking about the brand new book, Eat to Beat Disease. Thanks for joining me, Dr. Li.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me, Tonia.
There's a lot to talk about. Let's start by telling us a little bit about your background and how you got to this point to even decide to do the book, Eat to Beat Disease.
Right. Well, I'm a physician, an internal medicine doctor, and a scientist. I study blood vessels. I've been doing that for almost 30 years. And most of my career has, in fact, been figuring out, how do you conquer diseases by finding the weak spots, the Achilles heels of diseases, and developing new medicines for them. And over the course of my career, I've been involved with 32 FDA-approved new treatments for everything from cancer to diabetes to vision loss. But one of the things that I realized along the way was that there was this sort of missing tool in the toolbox for doctors and patients alike, and that was food. Traditionally, in medical school, doctors aren't taught very much about nutrition, and I certainly wasn't. But all of my patients always asked me at the end of a visit what they could be doing for themselves, especially if they actually were grappling with a serious disease. And so I realized I didn't know much about it. I felt that was wrong. And it set me on this journey that led me to write this book, because I started to realize that you could take the same type of serious scientific approach that we use for drug development and study foods. So in my new book, Eat to Beat Disease, I really talk about the new insights into food and health, and that's this. When it comes to our diet, it's not just really about the food, it's about how our body responds to what we put inside it. And that's really the essence, is that when you have an appreciation of how our body naturally defends itself against disease, then you have a new lens at which to look at which foods can actually help activate that.
I am so glad to hear you say that now food hopefully is becoming a topic in medical communities and education, because you're right. It seems that doctors never talked about how what we're putting into our bodies is really affecting our health, our disease. And it's great that this is finally coming to the forefront.
Right. Well, we've, taken things even further by looking at what health actually is. So most people think of health as the absence of disease, but we know it's a lot more than that. In fact, what we've discovered is that our health is a result of our body's natural defense systems, of which there are 5 I write about in my book. And these defense systems are hardwired in us, and they are firing on all cylinders from the time we're born to our very last breath. And so what's interesting, what are these defenses? Turns out it's angiogenesis, which is the process our bodies use to grow blood vessels. Our circulation brings oxygen and nutrients to every cell in our body, defends us. Our stem cells, which, when we were kids, we were told that starfish and salamanders can regenerate, but people can't. Well, that's now been overturned. We now know that we do regenerate and repair ourselves from the inside out. Microbiome, healthy gut bacteria, our DNA protects and fixes itself from environment and lifestyle damage that we do to it. And our immune system, which is our 5th defense system, is more powerful than we ever thought. And we know this because there are now even cancer treatments that don't kill the cancers, but they just prompt the body's immune system to wipe out cancer by itself. So with these defenses in hand, we can now begin to take a look at what foods do from a completely new light.
I'm wondering, the approach of being able to try to cure the disease instead of just kind of put a Band-Aid over it is a major factor, and hopefully what we're eating can do that.
Right. Well, the traditional way that doctors approach disease is to try to diagnose and cure it using medicines. And in some ways, it's like, trying to corral the horse after it's out of the barn. I think foods can be even more powerful than medicines because they can help prevent disease in the first place. And if you think about it, health care is something that we traditionally think happens in the doctor's office or the hospital. But in fact, there is health care that happens between doctor's office visits. And that's the decisions we all make that affect our health and wellness. And that's the food that we actually put into our body every single day.
What have you found in your research as far as different foods helping?
Yeah, well, so it's sort of all based on the health defense systems, right? So what are the foods that actually activate and help support our health defenses, our natural health defenses. Well, it turns out of those 5 health defenses, there are more than 200 foods that I write about in my book, all supported by evidence, science, and facts. And these science and facts really help us really have clarity on some foods, and sometimes it actually overturns some urban legends. For example, we know that there are no magic bullet foods or magic diets, but there are some individual foods whose benefits might be surprising. One of them is soy, right? So soy is surrounded by this urban legend that women should avoid it because it can cause breast cancer,
right,
because it contains a plant estrogen.
Right.
Well, what we now know is that although human estrogen can fuel some breast cancers, plant estrogens are not human estrogens and can even counter it and help fight cancer.
Wow.
So in my book, I write about a study of more than 5,000 women who have breast cancer and show that those who ate more soy had better survival and less chance of having their cancer come back. So that's an example of where science overturns sort of urban legend and gives us a tool. Now, how much, and what in my book, I even talk about the specific dose. So from these studies, we can even calculate what the doses are. So the doses for breast cancer that have been found in this study is 10 grams of soy protein a day. That's about as much as you get in 1 8-ounce cup of soy milk. And that's not so difficult to do. Another food would be like tomatoes, right? So right now people have some confusion about tomatoes. Maybe it's related to nightshade and it's got toxins. Look, tomatoes are an amazing source of vitamins. And they also contain a natural chemical, a bioactive, that's called lycopene, which actually starves cancer by cutting off its blood supply. It's anti-angiogenic. And I write about a study of 47,000 men that showed that those who ate 2 to 3 cups of cooked tomatoes, that's tomato sauce, every week, had a 30% reduced risk of developing prostate cancer because the lycopene starved the cancer so they couldn't grow. So this is really the kind of clarity that science brings to the table. Another interesting food is dark chocolate, as if we need another reason to love chocolate. Chocolate is a confection, but really dark chocolate's made with a high concentrations of cacao, which contain these polyphenols, people will talk about now. And in my book, I read about research that's been done to show that eating dark chocolate, foods containing dark chocolate, like even hot cocoa made with dark chocolate, can help coax out our natural stem cells, which helps our body repair and regenerate itself from the inside out and improve our circulation. And so, here's another reason that chocolate actually is good for the heart, right?
Right.
About Valentine's Day. It actually helps our blood vessels. Another kind of surprising food is mangoes. Now, I love mangoes.
Oh, yeah.
So they are amazing. Great source of vitamins. They have fiber as well. And they also contain natural chemicals that activate all 5 of our health defense systems. So our circulation, our stem cells, our microbiome, healthy gut bacteria, our DNA, our immunity. And because mangoes actually activate all 5 at the same time, I call it a grand slammer, which is there's a whole chart in my book on grand slamming foods. And so they can starve cancer, boost our immune system, lower inflammation, turn on protective DNA, and even help grow healthy gut bacteria. And so, this is the type of research that really I try to bring to the surface on 200 different foods. And all of these are actually supported by scientific published references.
I love the fact of you saying that it's all supported by scientific references and that you've done all this research. What's interesting is there are so many different diets out there. There are so many different people also doing research on this and that. And it gets to the point where I think the public is trying to figure out, okay, who's right? There's so many people telling us to do different things like the ketogenic diet. Okay, is that healthy? Some people say yes. Some people say no. I talk to some people that say long term, that's very dangerous. Short term, okay, it might solve the problem. Then I talk to people that say tomatoes have lectins. Stay away from them for autoimmune disease. So Dr. Lee, how do we differentiate what direction to go in? Is it all based on our own problems inside and what we're trying to solve?
Right. Every individual is different. And our bodies will respond to foods in different ways. So, in fact, some people do have specific conditions in which they have to avoid or should avoid certain foods. I mean, a simple thing here, some people are allergic to the iodine in fish and seafood. Some people are allergic to nuts. That's pretty simple. And some people do have true bona fide gluten allergies, like celiac disease. So those are the simple, kind of like straightforward medical facts. I think that what you're really referring to is the fact that there are lots and lots of fad diets and fad foods. And what my book, Eat to Beat Disease, is trying to do is to get away from that, to say, like, let's not focus so much on any single food or group of foods. Let's focus on our body. Let's understand how our body works first. And then we can begin looking at what the science tells us about how individual foods affect our body. And by the way, we're at the beginning of a new era of nutrition, where food as medicine is now becoming, recognized as an emerging field in and of itself. And so I think starting with this book information, and I think going into the future, we're going to start leaving behind in the rearview mirror some of these confusing, fireworks that go on in the public about this food is good and that food is bad. What I think is that we should first look at foods that we love, and there's 200 foods in my book that I list, all supported by evidence for benefit. And so we can think about adding foods for our health, not just eliminating them, because I think human nature abhors deprivation. And so we should lean into the foods that we like, eat them in moderation, and diversity is really, really important. So there's no magic bullet or magic diet. It's really about how the whole person responds to what we put inside us.
Well, I do agree with you there. What about some great recipes? I think your book is filled with lots of great suggestions. Can you share one or two with us?
Well, so one of my favorites, in fact, is purple potato gnocchi with a walnut pesto.
Oh, wow.
And by the way, I've actually tasted every single one of these dishes, and they're really, really amazing.
So you must like to cook.
First of all, I love to cook. I love sampling foods from multiple cultures. And I think that's the other thing about my book is that, I'm just presenting information. I'm presenting the facts that can give everybody information, the ability to make healthier food choices, regardless of their socioeconomic status or their culture. And across cultures, so purple potatoes and gnocchi. So purple potatoes come from Latin America. And the purple dye that's in the natural dye that makes purple potatoes purple, actually, amazingly, can kill cancer stem cells. These are sort of the holy grail of cancer research.
Wow.
Get rid of those little baby-producing cancer stem cells. And it's really amazing. But guess what? You can make those into a delicious gnocchi, okay?
Yeah.
And purple potato gnocchi complemented with a pesto made with walnuts. So tree nuts have been shown to be incredibly beneficial. They're packed with nutrients and healthy fats. In fact, tree nuts are kind of a grand slamming food. And studies have shown that a couple of servings per week of tree nuts like walnuts can actually reduce your risk of colon cancer. And it slows cellular aging in the lab. And it also helps to grow a healthy gut bacteria. So, I don't think people who read my book and cook from the recipes that are in there need to memorize the science. But I put those recipes in there because I know they taste great. And as long as you know that what you're eating is actually good for you, knock yourself out. I mean, I just love, that's one example of a recipe I love. Another really simple recipe is, just tomato sauce. It's the simplest thing you can think of, right?
Right.
So it turns out if you pick a tomato from the vine and you eat it like an apple, the lycopene, which is that cancer-starving natural substance, is in a natural form that doesn't get absorbed very easily in the body. But if you actually heat it slowly in a pan, especially with olive oil, the heat will change the natural chemistry, so your body loves to absorb it. So think about it. Tomatoes simmered in olive oil to convert it into a cancer-starving, delicious tomato sauce is amazing. So take it one step further. Go to the grocery store, or the farmer's market, and look at how many tomatoes you can actually find. We even know what types of tomatoes are highest in lycopene, and so those are San Marzano tomatoes. Even the canned ones are fine.
No kidding.
Cherry tomatoes. The lycopene is packed, and a big tomato is packed in a tiny little body. It's really concentrated. And then there is a yellow tomato called the tangerine tomato, which is also really rich with lycopene. So as you sort of navigate through my book, you can find all these like practical things that can help make, the next trip to the grocery store, the farmer's market, kind of an adventure.
Well, it makes you feel good when you know that what you're eating is actually helping your body. And speaking of helping your body, I know one of the subtitles on your book is The New Science of How Your Body Can Heal Itself. Tell us about that. So if someone is already in a state of disease, concentrating on changing their food really does have the ability to help them heal quicker, right?
Yeah. Well, think about it. When we are born, our body is immediately exposed to aging, the environment. And as we grow up, we add another sort of burden on ourselves, which is lifestyle. And the body's continuously trying to repair itself and heal itself and stay healthy and function. That's what's the key. I think the beating heart of my book is really is revealing what are the health defense systems that we normally have. So when we're sick, it's really kind of the breaking down of one or more of these defense systems where the disease is able to take over. For example, let's look at cancer. We're all forming cancers in our body, just little tiny mutations in our DNA, but most cancers will never become dangerous because they don't have a blood supply, no angiogenesis. Our body defends itself by preventing cancers from being fed by circulation, and our immune system will wipe them out. But if you actually compromise that, the tumors can grow. So traditional cancer therapy was always aimed at actually just destroying the cancer and everything else in its way, including our health. But now we know that you can actually start to starve the cancer using fancy medicines and even activate the immune system and allow the body's immune system to wipe out the cancer. So we're having brand new view on how to actually conquer disease. Food is what an individual, somebody who is struggling with an illness, can do for him or herself between doctor's office visits. And that's the missing tool in the toolbox. I'm a doctor who's been involved with developing new medicine, so I truly believe in that. However, I do think that we are entering this new era where we're going to begin looking at food and what we eat as a tool that we can add to our life in order to be able to support our health and to help fight disease.
We are talking with Dr. William Li about the brand new book, Eat to Beat Disease. One of the things on your list that I put in my diet daily is cinnamon. Tell me what you found out about cinnamon, because I've understood its benefits, and I think it's really important to share that.
Right. Well, cinnamon, like many herbs and spices, contain lots of different natural chemicals. And, many of those chemicals actually give the aroma, the flavor, the sensation that you have when you have a spice. I love cinnamon. I think it's got this, heavenly activating flavor. It stimulates my senses. And the cinnamic acid is actually one of the natural chemicals that actually is powerful in terms of activating our blood vessels and keeping our blood vessel health going. And so, when you put cinnamon as a spice into a dish, whether it's like a moussaka, like a Greek dish, or whether you put it into a mulled cider, we're really sort of adding little bits of helpful ingredients into our body. So think about that for not just cinnamon, but other types of spices that we actually use. Saffron is another one, beautiful scent you can give. So many of the ancient wisdom that led to some of these culinary breakthroughs that we see in these amazing recipes across cultures there's this sort of wisdom, ancient wisdom, that something in these spices actually were healthy for our body.
Well, one thing I did find out was that Ceylon cinnamon seems to be the better choice compared to others. Have you heard that?
So the source of the food is also starting to become really important, and I have not yet had the chance to study Ceylon cinnamon. But where a root or an herb or spice or plant grows seems to make a big difference. And this is another reason why we need to all work together and link arms to help protect our planet and make sure that we're protecting the soil that our foods are growing in, and also to be able to protect the diversity of the plants that we actually have. I mentioned earlier, how the different varietals can make a difference. If you take a look at olives, right? So olive oil being a healthy fat, there's a natural chemical called hydroxytyrosol, which is a fancy name, but that's really a polyphenol that is super health defense boosting. There are 3 types of olives. If you go to, a grocery store and look at all the different types of olives out there, there are 3 types of olives that actually have the highest levels. And you can find these in the olive oils made from them. The Greek is made from the Koroneiki olive, which is found from the Peloponnesus. The Italian olive is called the Moriolo from Umbria. And the Spanish olive, which is great, high in these hydroxytyrosols, called the Picual olive. So the next time you go to buy olive oil, you should, maybe take a hint from what I have in the book. I always pick up the bottle and I look to see what olive was this pressed from, and I look for those types of olives. So yes, where they come from, the varietal that they are, can make all the difference in the world, and we're just at the beginning of figuring out which are the different ones that are best for us.
Dr. Lee, what's your take on organic versus non-organic?
Well, I think the general wisdom is that not having chemical pesticides is a good thing.
Of course.
I certainly agree with that. But, on the other hand, it's so difficult to actually get foods that's affordable and transportable and everywhere else. So we're really, at this awkward stage in terms of our agricultural point in our civilization where we want to have food that's available for everyone, and yet we want them to be in the highest quality, most pristine positions possible. I would say, you can buy organic, definitely go for it. I think that, but sometimes it's not possible. And so, I'm sort of looking at the science, and I think the jury is still really out. It's a heated debate. And what I would say is that make an individual choice based on what you can actually find that fits within your availability and your price range.
That's true. And do genetics play a big factor in all of this?
Absolutely. So, if you take a look at what we inherit from our parents and our ancestors, in addition to many, many incredibly great traits, whether it's the color of our hair or the color of our eyes or our strength or, all that kind of stuff, there are traits that are passed down that can be dangerous. And whether it's for high cholesterol, whether it's for cancer, the infamous BRCA gene, those are sort of ticking time bombs that are in our bodies. And so the new kind of era of genetic testing, which you can do with a 23andMe kind of like thing, or there's a company called Color that actually can help you screen for what type of cancer risk you can have, can bring to the surface what small genetic time bombs might actually be in our body that we inherited from our parents and our remote relatives. If you have a risk like that, and I write about this in one of the appendices, it's sort of a risk assessor. If you have one of those risks, you might want to actually take extra care to choose the foods that science says can help tamp down or counterbalance the risk for that particular disease. It might be breast cancer, it might be prostate cancer, it might be heart disease, it might be diabetes. And so this is an example, I think, of precision nutrition and precision medicine. This is in the future ahead of us. We can see it on the horizon, and the road is coming up really fast.
Dr. Lee, is this your first book?
This is my first book, and I've been really amazed at the reception it's received. It just came out last week, and it rose very quickly to the #1 book on Amazon. And I just think that it just shows you how hungry people are to have real facts about food. And that's one of the things that I wrote this as a man on a mission. I think that it's so important that people have information about the food that they can count on, because food has immediacy. Once we learn something, we can actually put it into action right away.
Absolutely. It's just wonderful that you've spent the time to do the research and can provide us with such scientific evidence. I really appreciate chatting with you today. Do you have a website that we can also check out?
Yes. First of all, for your listeners, my book, Eat to Beat Disease, is available anywhere where books are sold. And you can find me also on social at Dr. William Lee on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I'm constantly posting new facts, both from the book as well as the ones that are still coming out. Even after I've written the book, there's more research that's coming out every single week. And you can sign up really on my website and be part of my community to stay informed about the new research at drwilliamleeli.com.
I really do appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge with us. And the brand new book is Eat to Beat Disease. Thanks so much, Dr. Lee.
Thank you. It's been great chatting with you.
You've been listening to Food Talk for Health with Tonia King. Thanks for joining us. Eat well to be well.